Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you are tuning in from. Welcome to the Black family, united by history, restored by storytelling. We will get started here in about a couple of minutes. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to building with you all. Greetings, everyone. So happy to connect and be with you all today. Welcome again to the Black family, united by history, restored by storytelling. I am Joyce Leanne. I am indivisibly an archivist and an artist, and I am the founder of Archival Alchemy, a business that specializes in helping cultural institutions and artists to enrich and activate archives. You are here on Asala TV, or you're in the Zoom room with us to launch or relaunch this project. And so I'm going to give us a couple of remarks about what this project is about. And then we have two exciting workshops for you all today and lots more information to engage with us over the next few months. So I'm going to read our description of the workshop, of the project, because I really love what our team has put together and to describe and really encapsulate what it is that we're doing here. In 2019, after 400 years of displacement, African Americans descended upon West Africa for the year of return. As Black people gathered to memorialize our coming home, just a few months later, the global Black family was disbanded yet again by the COVID-19 pandemic. Over this last year, the Black family has wrestled with grief stemming from the loss of jobs, health, and family members due to the pandemic, compounded by the numerous deaths at the hands of police. However, this year, we also celebrated graduations, weddings, and births of the next generation. Through this programming, we hope to inspire families to reconnect and reemerge whole through archiving, storytelling, and breaking bread. The Association for the Study of African American Life and History, in collaboration with Archival Alchemy, presents a national program, The Black Family, United by History, Restored by Storytelling, which encourages participants to host intergenerational family reunions, virtual or in person, to explore their unique African American heritage and family history. The Black Family Project will include this introductory event, which you may be tuning in live, or you may be catching the recording of it on our microsite once that is launched. And there's going to be 7 pre-recorded workshops, a live Q&A session on July 31st. Mark your calendars for that. and a pre-conference, ASALA's, I believe it's the 106th annual conference that will be happening in September. We will be kicking that off with a pre-conference event that will culminate this project on Founders Day for ASALA, which will be September 9th. And these programs, with the pre-recorded workshops and everything, is trying to excite people to reunite them, but also to encourage them and empower them to be the agents and experts of their own experience. And we're doing that through a certificate program. These, the program overall is going to guide participants in the tools of oral storytelling, genealogy, and family archiving that may serve as a roadmap to your reunions after this year apart. The program highlights the legacy of Black family reunions and encourages families of all backgrounds. Even though we are focused on the Black family, we do encourage families of all backgrounds to create their own family reunion traditions. And what we are trying to do through this program is to give you a lot of tools about what you do when you're with each other, how to make the most of that time, especially because we all know now how special and how important and not what do you call it? It's not guaranteed our time that we have together. If we've learned anything from this global experience that we have shared. And so when we are together, let's make sure that we are making the most of that time. And we want to give you all so much tools. We have amazing workshops and things planned for you all to empower you when you all are together. We're trying to hope that you do that throughout the month of August. We invite you to host a family reunion using these tools and skills presented throughout the workshops, some of which you're going to get today on just how to plan a reunion. And what's the most important thing when we go to reunion? What we gonna eat? That's one of the first questions in the Black family. Who's cooking what? What we gonna eat? So we're gonna talk about that today. And then, yes, we will have all of our workshop participant. So we have a couple workshops today. Now I can go off script. So we have a couple of workshops today, as I just said, that's going to get you started, just get you excited and thinking about what does it mean to plan a family reunion. I know I have a desire to do that, but I may not know all the different steps I need to take in order to make sure I plan that reunion as best as I can, especially because this would be such a significant reunion to have while we're still in the midst of this pandemic. And then also, again, what we gonna eat and how are we preserving that, the Black family, the culinary history, those recipes, how are we ensuring that that is passed down for generations? I wish I knew how to make my grandmother's peach cobbler, you know, and very sad that I missed that boat. But fortunately, I think my mother knows how to make that. So different things like that Therese Nelson will be speaking about later. And also is a little bit more about the workshops. Again, we have about 7 of them. We have one that was from the conference last year, which is a family writing workshop. And then we have a basic and an advanced oral storytelling. We have a lot of different things around genealogy. We have how to preserve records. We just have so much. We have some amazing facilitators who will all, again, be joining us on July 31st. So that way, as you're going through your own self-guided program with the pre-recorded materials, you can then come back on July 31st and you can ask our workshop facilitators any questions you may have in your journey. And then also what I've come to learn about this work, we love to share our stories with each other. We love to be in community when we do this work. And so it would be exciting too, also, if you are able to join us on July 31st to see each other, to talk to each other about your experiences going through this program. And then we will break in August to break bread and to commune with our familial, with our chosen families, our birth families, whoever family, what that means to you. And then we will come back together in September to culminate with that event on Founders Day, which on September 9th. And we're going to have some panelists that day who will show you, once you gather all this information, once you got excited, once you started learning who your people is, what can you do with that information? information. There's so many different things we can do with what we've been gathered. I often put that in my art. Some people put that in cases for reparations. Some people put that in how to combat bullying, and just so many different ways that we can activate and utilize the information of our families. And yes, so with that, I'm gonna moving on through this slide, if it will allow me to advance. Okay, there's my advanced button. So yes, I gave you a bit overview. So this is just a little bit so you can see what I was talking about. Right now, we are in the process of getting this awesome project with all of these resources together for you all on ASALH's website. So, and we would encourage you to go for now to asalh.org and sign up for ASALH's mailing list so you can be the first to know once this site with all the recordings and all this other information is made available to you all. We like to give thanks. An effort like this, a national program, is something that you do not do on your own. ASALH has reached out to Archival Alchemy, and we are showing support to bring this project and this vision that they've had to life. I want to give a huge shout out to my Archival Alchemy family and team who have been working tirelessly and putting in a lot of amazing efforts to put this program together. Also want to give a shout out to the funder of this project. This project is supported by a grant from New York Life. And then also we have a dynamic team of production and video editing and graphic designing and just all those people that we really want to give thanks, and their names are there for you on the screen as well. Now we're going to get things started here with at the kitchen table. We know in Black families, so much of our business goes down at the kitchen table. That's where we plan things, we figure out disputes, we figure out our ways forward. And so today we're going to be at the kitchen table planning Black family reunions with Tracey Artis of the Black Family Reunion Organization. It was never a question not to do it. It was how I would do it. Ashe. Tracey Artis is the founder of I Hear Music, a Cincinnati-based marketing, promotions, and event firm representing international gospel artists. Using her gifts to glorify God, Artis has represented some of contemporary gospel's music's biggest names. Since 2014, Artis has been the director of the Midwest Black Family Reunion, a 3-day celebration that attracts over 15,000 attendees. And today, she is here to share with you all how to plan reunions. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tracey, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise and your energy with us.
Thank you so much. I'm not on video. I'm trying to get there. Okay. It says you cannot start your video because the host has disabled it. Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for having me today. Very excited. I love planning family reunions and have been the chair of mine several times down through the years. We do a biannual reunion, but just wanted to share some tips about how to get started, how to organize a family reunion for your family. If you've never had one before, or even if you've had one, to potentially take it to the next level. So one of the very first things you would need to do is identify a committee, a team of people within your family that everybody trusts to be able to not just plan a reunion, but also execute a reunion. The next thing you will want to be able to do is identify the purpose of the reunion. Is it just to bring everyone together? Are there other things that you would like to do during the course of your family reunion weekend? Do you want to do some sightseeing while in the city? Do you want to have a party while you're doing your Black family reunion, doing your family reunion for your family? Do you want to cook and share recipes during that time? So after you formulate your committee, you also then want to identify the purpose of coming together. We know you're coming together to celebrate your family, but what other things do you want to do? Also, having a theme is very important. I remember one year for our family reunion, the theme was "We Are One." And the message we wanted to convey is that we're all together. It doesn't matter if we live in different cities, we had different parents, some were cousins, some were siblings, because we became a family unit, correct? But we also very much wanted the message to be very clear that we are one. So having a theme is very important. Also, where will you have the reunion? The ambiance is important. Will you be outside for one of your days of the reunion? Will you choose a venue indoors? Do you have a plan if it rains and you have planned for outside? Potentially you could bring in a tent if you're going to be outside, so that you can make sure even if there is a challenge with weather, we're still able to go on as planned. Will you hire a caterer, or will you and your family do some of the cooking? So that's all part of the planning. And what will we cook? Will we have healthy foods? Because I think it's very important that we have a balance of foods. Our culture, we really love to celebrate, food. It's a part of our story, and it's a wonderful part of our legacy. But I do think it's very important to also have a balance. So you may want to have some fish items as well as some beef and pork, barbecue, hamburgers, mets, hot dogs, but then sneak in some of those favorite family recipes. Who does the best potato salad, baked beans, whatever sort of vegetable you choose to have? So the venue and catering, very, very important. The historical connect. One year we chose Savannah because that's where so many of our ancestors, slaves, came into Savannah, and we were able to connect with local government there, and we had a keynote address from the vice mayor of the town. So when you're thinking of venues, if you're going outside of where you live and you're having a destination reunion, think about the historical content of the venue, the location, the city that you choose. Activities while there. You have to hone in on the demographics of your family. Do you have a lot of youth? Do you have seniors? Do you have middle age? If you have a mixture of all, you want to have something for everyone to do. Good old spades game, bid whist. So you can have a portion of the weekend where you have games and activities, or a portion of one of the days. Make sure that there are things for the kids to do, like swimming, playing basketball. Maybe someone that is a chess pro could teach the other kids how to play chess. I've mentioned various card games, reading, storytelling, sharing with the children, someone that could just read a book to the kids, just letting them know that you have to have a balance. So we want to have a fun component, but we also want to have an educational component. Communication, as you're planning and executing, and even during the course of the weekend, how are you going to communicate to the other family members about activities that are going on, changes in those activities? Let's say you charter a bus while you're in the town and the bus is going to arrive late. Do you have a text campaign? Have captains on your committee that can help spread the word? If everybody is in the same block of rooms, you can slide things under the door the night before to make them aware of the activities for the next day or any changes. Communication leading up to the reunion, you can build a website. You can have a Facebook page. You can, again, text, email. All of these things are ways to connect. You can have a Facebook page just for the event, solely for the reunion weekend, and then continue to use it as a communication tool to stay connected with the family even after the reunion. As your committee has come together, you also want to identify, are we able to do this every year, or will this be a biannual event? Some families do it every year. Some people, again, do it every 2 years. So you want to identify that, how often you will meet. Family trees, your genealogy. When you're coming together, have that already built out and visible for persons to see, and make sure that you continue to build upon it. While there, you want to acknowledge births and deaths and anything that has grown or been added to the family lineage, thus the family tree. T-shirts, a way to bring everybody together with a common, okay, now we all have common wardrobe item that we're wearing one day. It could be the day of the reunion that you all decide to venture away from the hotel. Speakers, who will speak to the family during the course of the reunion? Will you have the matriarch of the family speak? Will you have someone from the youth division of the family speak? And what will they share? What will they speak about? And when will they do this? Most often at the beginning of a reunion, you would have someone address the family, someone welcome everyone there. You would have someone speak when it's time to bless the food. You would have someone acknowledge the committee, thank those persons. Maybe outside of the committee, someone could be identified as a person that would be the thank you committee. So these are various ways to have people speak. In my family, we stopped going to a church while in a city. We started using the oldest member of each of the individual families to address the family during church service. And we just rent a space there at the hotel. And we all come forward. I remember one year there was maybe 5 first cousins, and they were the children of the different family siblings. And there was a theme, so they all spoke on that theme. They all had a timeline to speak, but it was amazing because then you got to hear the hearts of the family members. So often when we're together for a reunion, you're fellowshipping and talking, you're eating, potentially sightseeing, you may have a party, but you're not always able to sit and share. Also, make sure that when the families come together, that you all branch outside of the persons that you came with. That way you're getting to know each other. Also, a family directory, very, very important. So we don't want to assume that everyone has information as to how to connect with each other. So potentially you could build like a address book that has everyone's names, physical street addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers. Also, what business are they in? Oftentimes, my family, people have changed careers, but we have nurses in our family, doctors, educators, entrepreneurs. So aside from just having the address book, also share what each member of the family does. When I speak of educators and doctors and the different persons that make up my family, I think it's important at any reunion to be able to identify who knows what in case of emergency. Everybody should be asked to fill out an emergency form before they come to the reunion. It could be me filling out one for my entire family. I might have a diabetic in the family. What if someone is away from, who they came with and they have an emergency? Everyone should be able to know what to look out for. If someone went into a diabetic coma, you would want to give them something sweet to bring them back. So make sure that you have an emergency kit on hand, and also make sure that you have, aside from an emergency kit, you have identified persons that could help in case of emergency. We all know to dial 911 if you're at a hotel. Whoever the committee is may want to speak with the hotel about where to exit in case of a fire emergency, right? How close, if we did call 911, would the nearest fire and safety unit house be so that you would know what is around you? Okay, I think that's very important. Sponsors. What if you have a family reunion the size of 150 persons and you converge on a town? I would absolutely reach out to the industry in the town and send them a package. Let them know that you are bringing this many persons to their city, or you're having a reunion in the city where you already live, and you want to see if your local grocery store chain will be interested in being a sponsor. What will be the return on their investment? Maybe they gave a coupon to everyone in the family, and then you come to the store they scan that coupon and they can now see what you purchased. So they're able to see all 150 persons use this coupon that was $1 off an item, but over $100 was spent by the majority of the people that came in. That's a return on their investment. What if there is a potential sponsor and they want you to help market their product? Those persons are called brand ambassadors. So your family could become a brand ambassador for a grocery store chain, someone selling product, a hair salon in town, a fun complex for youth. So there's a myriad of things. It just takes a little research and developing a sponsorship package. A sponsorship package may entail what you will receive if you were to allow us to be a sponsor for you. Give them all the information about the reunion so they know where the event is going to be held and all of the above. So that's something that's very important. Marketing. We talked about ways to share with your family what is going on inside of your family reunion weekend. But what if you want to invite others? What if you wanted to have an open day where you invited other people to come together and made it a little larger than just your family? And what would be the reason for doing that? Maybe you are having your reunion in a small town, but there have been persons that have been very much a part of your life and the family's life. Maybe for your Sunday dinner, you would invite other persons. Also, cost, very important. You don't want to overprice the reunion so that people consider not coming. You just want to make it affordable for everyone. And you have to hone in on the demographics of your family. I've seen people have $1,000 weekend, but I've seen my family for a family for the entire weekend do $250. I've seen some families just have potluck one day, throw a party at someone's home in the yard the next day to keep it affordable so that they can ensure that everyone has the opportunity to attend the reunion. Party. So when you think of a party, we're still in the midst of a pandemic, but what if you were having a reunion this weekend, this year, over the course of a weekend, and you wanted to throw a party? You probably want to look at an outdoor venue for safety reasons. You probably want to consider having something outside, still trying to have social distancing if you can. And also, you want to have stations where people can clean up with hand sanitizer, wipes, and things of that nature. But I do recommend during the course of your weekend, if you're going to be planning a party during this time, that you consider outdoors. Also, during the course of a weekend, you have a lot of people coming together for an event, and most often someone will lose something. So it's important to have an area called lost and found. It could be a large tub or box that is there on site. And if somebody loses something, they can bring it there and have someone from the committee that daily will check and try to match up those items with different family members. So at the end, no one has left anything behind. Pictures, very important. I lost my mother last year. She passed on April the 23rd, but we have so many pictures of our mother. We have family reunion portraits that were taken. So here's a few thoughts and ideas about ways to memorialize the weekend, if you will. Hire a professional photographer that can come and take a group picture of the entire family. Also ask the photographer to offer a package to sell for individual families. So often we take a lot of selfies and pictures on our phone, but we may not have a picture of father, mother, children, along with a grandmother in a picture. Those are great ways, again, to memorialize not just the occasion, but the family unit. So pictures are important. So what will I do with the individual pictures? Well, if you purchase pictures, you would probably share with the individual members of the family. You would probably take a picture, one of your pictures, and put it in your home. But what should the family do? The family should put all the pictures together and post them and share them for other members of the family to see. But also, all the pictures should go into archives. There should absolutely be someone in your family that is in charge of making sure that anything that was given out over the course of the weekend and photographs are placed in archives so that 20 years from now, you can go back and see the program from your church service. You can see the photos from that particular weekend. If you had a directory built from that weekend, so there's a myriad of things that you could do with photographs and other things. But one of the main things, aside from sharing them over the course of the weekend, is to keep them so that they can be in archives. Who is the historian of your family? If you haven't identified one, it's very important that someone houses all of the family lineage, houses all information about the various family members. So I think it's very, very important to identify a historian. Um, Someone asked a question and I want to share about, I want to go back to that. A question was info on sponsors. So in your individual community, you can go to different businesses with it could just be a one sheet. I call it a sponsorship package, and reach out to them, ask them to donate money to your weekend and become a sponsor for, in my instance, it would be the Artist Family Reunion. Show them, if you sponsor this event, let's say it was Coca-Cola, and they gave you all Coke products for the weekend. What Coca-Cola wants to see is that there's a return on their investment. Let's say they gave product with a value of $300. Well, how would they be able to see that they got a return on their investment? So I pointed to a coupon. Coca-Cola could give everyone in the family a coupon. Let's say it's 25% off a 2-liter of Coca-Cola. Well, they can identify everyone in your family by that coupon that came in and redeemed it. Most often when you come into a store, you're not just coming for one item, you're going to purchase other items. What if there was a new hair salon in town, a new store, a new restaurant, and they wanted to help get the word out about their business, and they utilize your reunion to help do that? So there's a myriad of ways to approach businesses, but approach them with information about the amount of persons that are going to be there and the demographics of the person. Because what if it's someone that is wanting to do something geared toward youth? They want to heighten awareness about a fun complex in their town. I took my son to a bowling alley last night, and it's called Omni Funplex, and it's new here in the city. I didn't know anything about it. I think that if there was a reunion in town and they were able to get the word out through a reunion, Omni Funplex could potentially become a sponsor. So just a myriad of ways to approach businesses in your area, but build a sponsorship package to show them what they would be getting. So we talked about historian. I think it's very important. And for every person that you have with a leadership role, try to have someone assist them as you plan your succession. So in our family, my mother and her sisters all are over 65. So if they have been the main persons planning the reunions all these years, if they didn't have assistance, then we would be starting, from scratch. But they didn't do that. They made sure in the years that they planned, they pulled their kids along. And so the first time I was a chairperson for the reunion, I was 29 years old. So, and then the last time I chaired it was 4 years ago. And so I had the experience and knowledge from watching others, and I love to plan. So that brings me to, how do you formulate your committee? Don't just pick people for any reason, but make sure they're people that are passionate about planning and executing. Family committee. So who will do what on the committee? So if should I have a 10-person committee? Should I have a 5-person committee? How many people should be on my committee? Think about the amount of persons that are in your family. So probably for every 10 persons, you would want to have one person on the committee. So if you have 100 people in your family, you would probably want to have about 10 people on the committee, but divide the committee. Everybody can maybe be a part of what the layout of the weekend would be like, but some people would be on the back end, meaning they would be shutting down everything, making sure everything was cleaned up, making sure all the bills were paid. But there may be other people that may have their roles as soon as you arrive. They would be the persons that would be decorating. They would be the persons that would be making sure that everything was in place, like caterers, transportation, DJs, things of that nature. If you're going to have a destination reunion, you probably want to go for a site visit prior to going. Um, so when I was the chair for Savannah, I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I had to be in Atlanta on business. So I took that opportunity to travel to Savannah, Georgia. I did my research before arriving in Savannah. Um, I wanted to go look at the actual hotel that I had identified. I made sure that the hotel had the amenities that were needed for the plan for the weekend. They had a reception hall. I negotiated with them so that I didn't have to pay a rental on the reception hall because of the amount of rooms I had. I also asked if there were any free rooms that could be given to me because we had over 35 rooms at the hotel. So they comped my suite for the weekend as the chair. Okay. And maybe gave a discount to some of the other rooms. I believe I paid it forward and gave mine to maybe one of the elders in the family. But there was a reception hall. They had breakfast that was, free each morning. They had a pool there for the children. The rooms were spacious enough for people that wanted to have potentially a whole family stay in a room together, like myself. It was me, my husband, and 2 children. So just very, very important to go there and see everything. I had 3 different caterers over the course of the weekend. I did tasters with each of them. I also negotiated the pricing. I just didn't accept what was given to me initially. I made sure, again, that I had researched before I came. I tasted all the food, loved the food, and then chose a menu from that. With my committee, which was my siblings, so there were 5 more persons. I then divided their roles up. I shared with them by way of a meeting when I came back. Here are the caterers, here are the menus, here's photos of the hotel. You can see the hotel online. Here's the bus company that I hired. Here's who's speaking on behalf of the mayor of the town. It was the vice mayor. Here's activities that we could do. We went to Tybee Beach. One of the caterers did a fish fry for us there on Tybee Beach. We rented a space there at Tybee Beach, always thinking about all of us being able to come together and stay together and be safe. That was something else that was very, very important to me. I looked at the crime in the area where the hotel was. I found out information from the persons at the hotel about other things that were in close proximity. I hired a driver because though I had been to Savannah for different events in the past, I had never been there alone. So I called a friend and she connected me with a driver, and he drove me around the day that I was there, and I got a chance to see a lot. And so that really helped me navigate my way through what the weekend would entail. Church service. I shared that at our reunions, we have a church service that we put on ourselves. But what if you want to have church service with a local church? How would you connect with churches? Let's say your family is Baptist, just simply by either connecting with someone in the town or looking up the various churches that are in town. I tried to do things for both of the reunions that I planned that were in close proximity to where we were staying. Because what you want to do is ensure that everyone has fun, but you want to make sure that you arrive to everything on time. You want to make sure that everyone enjoys all the activities to the best of their ability. So church, just, research and find out what is there. Music. Oh my goodness. Everybody in the family may have different things that they like, different foods. They maybe came from different cities. But one thing you're going to find about everybody is they love music, but you have to pick music to play over the course of the weekend that everybody likes. So you have to have something for everybody. Um, if you're in Georgia doing a reunion, you make sure that Georgia by Ray Charles is played. Make sure that Family Reunion by the OJs is played. But if you have young kids, you also may want to reach out to one of them. One of the committee members should reach out and say, give us a playlist. Even when we're in the reception room, even when we first arrive, we want to play music that's fitting for everyone. We want everyone to be comfortable and hear music that they like. In Savannah, we hired a DJ and we absolutely gave him a playlist, but then he played some of the music that he also thought would work for our family. But music is very, very important. I touched on t-shirts earlier, but I didn't say what do I think the t-shirt should do. It should bring everybody together, but absolutely have the theme on it. It should serve as a piece of the family history by having the date, the city, and the state there. So that's what you would do with your t-shirt, and make sure that whoever you purchase your t-shirts from has quality t-shirts so that they will last. Because there should be other times after the reunion that you choose to wear your family reunion t-shirt. Make sure there's sizes for everyone. And again, just making sure that it's quality and affordable. When you're coming up with your family reunion package, do you do a package where you put everything inside of the weekend and you say, here's the cost for your meals every day? Here's the cost for your t-shirt. Do you even put your hotel rooms inside the package? I would. I would not let individuals get their hotels on their own, because if you do it as a package, most often you're going to be able to get more of a discount. So try to keep as many things together as possible. Um, Points. We stayed at a Marriott and I had Marriott reward points, and I was able to gain points by staying at that hotel. Admonish family members prior to coming, if they're not signed up with that particular hotel, to get signed up so they can start building points. You want to be able to show we're having a family reunion weekend, but we're also being knowledgeable of perks that we can receive by being at a particular hotel, right? Um, Travel. How do we get there? If we're going on a destination reunion, or we have family all over the city, but we're going to travel to one of the cities that a family member lives in, let's get a travel agent and let her book everyone's travel. Or let's charter a bus. We've done that many times so that you don't have 40 cars leaving from various cities. Maybe there can be a meeting point. One year, all of Cincinnati chartered a bus, and we stopped in Kentucky and picked up probably another 20 family members, and then made another stop in Tennessee and picked up maybe another 10 family members before heading out to Washington, D.C. But it was much more cost effective for us to be on this charter bus as we head to the Northeast, as opposed to everyone either flying or driving. And it also appeared to be a much safer option because, again, we were all together. That's very important. One of the purposes of family reunion is to bring everyone together and keep everyone together during the course of the weekend. So when you point to the activities that you'll do over the course of the weekend, I'm going to come back to, it's very important to have activities for everyone. It's very important to have music that everyone likes. It's very important to have food that everyone likes. It's very important to have people speak and address the family that everyone wants to hear from, and you know they're respected and they have a clear message. Though family reunion weekends are fun, there's also a spiritual side to a family reunion because you're bringing the family together. That's a time to thank God for the opportunity to be together, because surely the next time you come together, there could be someone with a health challenge that was unable to make it, someone that has passed on. I know when our family comes together again, we would have had 3 passings since our last reunion: my mother, my uncle, my cousin Lamont. So, what will we do when we come together to make sure that we're uplifting everyone's spirits, but that we're also acknowledging the deaths? Potentially, you can do that at your church service. Potentially, you could have some sort of insertion in the church service to thank God for those that have went on. Also, how do you, when you wrap up your weekend, what are your next steps as you're planning for your next reunion? Ask at your business meeting, which I think is very important to have. You went through your weekend, and at the close, you have someone from the committee share everything. We were able to successfully bring 162 family members together this weekend. We were able to pay all of our debt and give scholarships to 6 of our students who are here this weekend that have either graduated from college or high school. This is how much is left in our treasury. We have $682 left. We were asking every family to give an additional 25, and then we're going to divide that between the family members. Or we're asking every individual that's not a minor to give $25, and then we're going to divide it. I've seen years in my family where we were able to give everybody that had graduated from high school and college between $150, $200. There's been years where some blessed soul was the only one that had graduated that year, and they got a large sum of money that was there. So at the very close, that's something that you want to consider, having someone speak on behalf of the committee, and then take that time to discuss what we do next. Are we going to come together next year? Are we going to come together 2 years from now and have a biannual reunion? Do we want to do something regional in between to fundraise for the next reunion? Why don't everybody that's in the Midwest come together in Cincinnati, Ohio, and let's have a fundraiser? We're just going to have a party one weekend, and all the money that is raised, we're going to give to our treasurer. Which brings me to a very important piece of a reunion. You can have a committee that changes every 2 years or every year based on where you're going, but you can have some consistent persons in the family that help carry on the family. You can have a treasurer that whenever money is raised or whenever money is donated, that treasurer will always have the money, and then they can disseminate the money to individual committees. You may want to always have someone that's over the birthday club so that they acknowledge everyone's birthday, maybe on your family reunion Facebook page or by actually mailing a card. You may want to have someone that reminds people you can give to the scholarship fund in our family all through the year. You don't have to wait to the next reunion. When can I do it? A way to maybe remind people is, when is your birthday? Bless the family with a $25 token. How can I get it to the family? You can make a check payable to your family reunion account. You can pay by Cash App. You can pay by PayPal. You can mail a money order. There's a myriad of ways that you can give money. But that way, you'll always have a treasurer. You'll always have foundational money to begin, because it's really tough sometimes to start from scratch. So if you always have a treasurer, then you always should have some money. You can put it in an interest-bearing account so that the money grows. What are things that we can do over the course of the weekend to ensure that no matter what's going on, if it's raining out, um, if something happened there at the hotel where you had a power outage, how can we ensure that we're going to be prepared no matter what? I talked about a medical kit earlier, but you can also have a kit that someone puts together on the committee just to ensure that everybody has what they need. It can have umbrellas in it. It could have rain jackets, or you can remind people what items to pack. So how do I do that? How do I share with people what items I would bring to the reunion based on where we are? Well, we were in Savannah for our reunion. It was very hot. So I share with people to bring individual fans, actual hand fans. We had hand fans for the church service that my mother actually had made just by purchasing the sticks at Michael's and then having the actual square piece of the fan made and stapled on. And they were really nice, and they're a keepsake, and I still have mine. So you can share by way of your communications group, what things to bring. So I talked about fans. I talked about hand sanitizer in my sheet. Um, when you get to the beach, you want to have suntan lotion. You want to make sure that you bring extra towels. You want to make sure if you're going to be there with children that they have everything they need, because you won't be able to get away. If you're on medication, remind people to bring your medication. Remind people to fill out their emergency form that has that information on there, so that if something happens to somebody, we know any health concerns that they have. So communication is something that goes on throughout the course of the weekend, but just sharing with people so that they have a very, very good idea of what is going to take place where they are. Do I need money outside of the money that I've already paid? And if so, uh, what do you suggest? Well, we're all on our own for lunch on Saturday. And here are some areas of town that I think would be good for us to go to. Share that information, share any menus through your communication that you can if the family is ever on their own. At the hotel, I tried to give everybody a really good visual of what amenities were there, what they had available, what was on their menu, because we have vegans in the family. So they did not have turkey bacon, but we requested it and they made that possible for us. So just remember to ask for anything that you need that is going to make your experience better. So there's a lot of planning that goes into a family reunion, but you have to make sure that it's all executed. So having the two-part committee I want to share is very, very important. And I've seen that it always works, because if I'm the one that's coming in, setting up everything for each event, potentially by the time that last day gets here, I'm exhausted. So that's where the other half of the committee comes in. So a family reunion is something that's very near and dear. And again, it could be some person's last time. So you want to make sure that you memorialize everything from the weekend. And you also want to make sure that it's planned and executed. Family reunions have a long history in our culture, because so many families were divided when they arrived here through slave trades. And oftentimes, when families would be brought back together, they would have reunions, and they would work hard to try to find other family members. And so that's something that I think is very important as well. As you're planning, try to reach out to as many people in your family that you can. So it could be a cousin that you haven't seen in years, still reach out. It could be someone, for whatever reason, had fallen away from the family, still reach out. It could be someone that hasn't attended a reunion in many years, still reach out. You want to communicate with everyone, because everyone makes up the family. There's also gift items that you may consider giving away during the course of the weekend, so that everybody, aside from a t-shirt, may have something again to remember the weekend by. What could that be? It could be a pencil. It could be an ink pen. It could be a bracelet. There are all kind of fun gifty items that could be given. It could be for your beverages, like a cup holder item that can wrap around it. It could be a mug. Do you want to acknowledge during the course of the weekend, again, births, persons that have passed, but you also want to acknowledge persons that are there that maybe got married, persons that got engaged. We already talked about graduations, persons that got a new job, started a new career path, persons that got promoted on their jobs, persons that retired, entrepreneurs that just launched a business. You want to celebrate the family while there. So if it's someone's birthday and it falls on the family reunion weekend, absolutely sing happy birthday to them while there. Um, Also, I think it wise from every group of the family that someone speaks. So when we talked about speakers, we talked about what point over the weekend would a speaker speak and who potentially could speak. I said earlier, could be your matriarch, right? But also have someone from your youth division speak, right? have someone from the middle age group of the family to speak. That way, everyone feels a part of, rotate also. You don't always have to have the same person speak at each reunion, but the matriarch probably should always. For my family, it's my Aunt Etta. She turned 80 last year. She's my mother's oldest sister. So probably always at every reunion, she would share something. And then my mom's first cousin, John Howard Stewart, the oldest of his siblings, probably would always say something. So just thinking about as much content as possible over the course of the weekend, because you may not always be together, but also think about rest time. I remember one of our reunions when my Aunt Debbie, who was the chair, gave us a layout of the weekend. She had nap time and everybody kind of giggled, but everybody utilized it. Everybody went back to their rooms for this particular block of time, maybe between 3 and 5:30. There were no activities, even though the reception hall should always be open and made available and have things in it. But during that time, we took a nap. So we got rejuvenated and then we were able to come back and we were able to enjoy the rest of the family reunion weekend. So just an amazing, amazing experience with planning family reunions. And I do it on a national level for my nonprofit, Jazz Jordan Inc., here in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's an annual event. It's held every third weekend of August. The website is myblackfamilyreunion.org. This year, it's August 20th through the 22nd. The park is Sawyer Point. The park is divided by pavilions. There's something there for everyone. We have a health pavilion, a seniors pavilion, a youth and young adult pavilion, a children's pavilion, an inspirational pavilion, a main stage in the park with talent, both urban and gospel. This year it's Drew Hill on the urban stage and Darwin Hobbs on the gospel stage. So just so much to do over the course of the weekend. I wish you all well as you plan and execute your family reunions. And thanks for the opportunity to share with you today.
Tracey, thank you so much. You are such an expert by experience. Thank you. I mean, just so many tips that you've shared. We really appreciate your energy and all of your just amazing information. We want to just see if there's any questions from our participants here today. I think there is one question over in the Q&A. So
Okay.
if anyone has any questions, this will be a good time. If you're tuning in on Asala TV on YouTube, please add your questions. And then if you have any questions on Zoom, if you would like to drop that in the Q&A. So right now we have a question that says from Johanna, Tracey, you said it's important to identify a historian. Great idea. But is there a disadvantage of having more than one family historian for your reunion?
I don't think it's a disadvantage if it's already been discussed. So let's say if it's a husband and wife and, they're elders in the family and they're going to work together as a team to bring all the family history together and to keep it. I don't think that's a negative. I do think, however, if it's going to be one person, that it's important that it be an elder, probably, someone that has the information, but also make sure that it's someone who wants to do it, enjoys doing it, and is going to do a good job at it.
Agreed. Yes, like sometimes it is great to just lean into a team dynamic in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the answer. Is there any other questions that we have while we have this expert in the room? Y'all might want to ask some questions.
You're welcome, Johanna.
We'll give it a couple minutes to see. Okay. We have a question from Sylvia. Yes, I can answer this question. Will there be documents or notes from this presentation that will be available online? The answer is yes. We will be having a workbook. In addition to these recordings being available and the certificate program that you can go through, there will also be a workbook that will be accompanying this program. That workbook may come on more of the tail end once we have had compiled everything from all of our facilitators throughout each of the workshops. But yes, there will be documents and notes. Any other questions? Or our YouTube Solid TV friends have any questions over there? AA team? Going once. Uh-oh, okay. Yes, so there's another question about, can our guests send suggestions on what they would like in the workbook? Sure, we are definitely want this to be a resource that is as useful to the participants as possible. So if there is anything, I would ask for somebody from the AA team to drop in the chat the familyhistory@asolid.org email address where you can reach out to us, and we will be sure to try to make accommodations for that. The workbook, there is not a actual determined time at this moment, but as soon as that is, as soon as we have that date, we will be sharing. So if you would like to sign up again for Asala's mailing list, you'll be the first person to know. But right now we're in the process of getting all of the workshops recorded. And so once we're able to get all of the resources from the facilitators, we will compile it and make that available. I suspect that will happen by mid-July. And then another question. So we have a question for, I think this one is for you, Tracey. Talk a bit about using reunions to build genealogy.
Yes, so I feel that whenever the family is together, that everyone that's coming to the reunion, you should have a listing of all of those persons, their birth dates of anyone in that individual family unit has passed. So when I spoke of acknowledgments of births and deaths, whoever your historian and your archive person is, they should keep all of that. I spoke of the family tree and how the family tree should be visible to everyone once you get to the reunion, but also you should be adding to the family tree if there have been births and persons that have even passed on. There's a way with your family tree, your archives, and your historian that you should list that. Whoever the historian is also should keep a record of deaths by obituaries and make sure that for all the families that are part of your family, that they know how important an obituary is, because it serves as a death record for the family. It shows in each obituary that person's family. We wrestled with, because we had a large family, who all to list in my mother's obituary, but we decided to list everyone, every grandchild, every great grandchild, because again, it's a part of your family history and genealogy. So the reunion can absolutely serve as a source for that.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Tracey. And then also, someone wanted to know, how long does it take to plan a family reunion?
I would say, if you're going to do a biannual reunion, you probably want to start at least a year ahead of time. But if you all do a reunion every year, you may want to kind of digress after the reunion and then, move it to another committee for the next year. So one that's held every year probably isn't as much work because you're doing it annually. So you could do that one within a 6 to 9 month window. Also, if you're staying in the same town every year, it would probably make it much easier as well. I mean, some families, I know a family, they meet every year, the same weekend in Kentucky. And so, and they meet at the same location. So they may not start sending out their communication sometime till, 6 months before, asking for people to pay their initial dues.
Thank you. And I think another thing that I would add to that I wanted to ask is, so one of our goals of this project, and this project has had to be remixed and repurposed because of the ways in which the pandemic has impacted so many different things, right? And so we wanted people to be able to gather, just even say this August, but so they may not be able to plan like a full reunion. So what could people achieve in a short amount of time? But
Mhm.
also that's a part of the question. The question is like, what could people achieve in a short amount of time, given that people are excited? I know myself, my family is based in Denver, Colorado. I am in New York
Mhm.
City, and I've not
Mhm.
seen them in over a year. And so
Okay.
I would really love to be able to connect with them.
Mhm.
But yeah, so how can we do something, an interim type of thing? And then
Mhm.
I just wanted to say to people that these resources are going to be on Asala's website and Asala TV indefinitely. So even if you started utilizing this information now for a fuller reunion next year, given Tracey's time frame estimates on how to do such.
Yes. So to do something, let's say right now you're in June and July 1st is next Thursday, and you all decided you wanted to come together for Labor Day. Probably the best thing to do for a short window like that is to go to an on-site location where everything is already available for you. Have your family reunion dinner at a restaurant. A lot of restaurants have outdoor seating, as well as they have indoor seating. So that's one way to do that. Have it at a church. You're all going to meet for church service. Some churches are opening. Plan your own church service, but have it outside, right? Let's say you have 50 people coming together for your family and you want to do potluck and you want to have it outside. Music can be played from a phone as opposed to you hiring a DJ, right? Let's say you want to wear an old family reunion t-shirt as opposed to trying to get a family reunion t-shirt made this time, right? So there's a myriad of things you can do with a short window, but already having existing programming would be the key. Have it already where everything is there available to you at a restaurant, going to a church service.
Thank you. Thank you. So there's a buffet of different ways that we can gather
Yes.
together. We can gather together now. And hey, maybe even I'll just throw this in there. This may even be a good time to plan a fuller reunion, getting people
Mm-hmm.
together. That's a good time,
Mm-hmm.
to have a meeting and maybe think through some of those steps for a fuller reunion that you could have next year or the year following. Another question we have from our Asala TV viewers on YouTube is, do you suggest video recording sessions at the reunion?
Video recording sessions, what would it be for? Would it be for people just giving greetings as a part of archive, or would it just be videotaping the entire weekend?
I would say, because they didn't specify, maybe if you want to
Mm-hmm.
speak to both. And then I would also add that
Okay.
during some of the workshops, if it's related to like oral stories or just
Yeah.
archiving, that they will get some tips about that in subsequent workshops. But if whatever you
Okay.
would want to speak to about that now.
Okay. So I would say if you had someone come in and videotape, I wouldn't have it be someone from the family because then that would take away from their time with the family. But here are some areas over the course of the weekend that I think, would be nice if you had it videotape. Your church service. If you had your church service videotape, if you had an awards banquet or any way when we talked about acknowledgments, however you formulate that, it might be nice to videotape that. Um, we have had different people in my family during the course of the weekend that videotape different parts and then put it together along with our pictures from the weekend and everything. So yeah, I think that that would be great to do.
Thank you for that. I think there is, let me just check here. I would say the only other thing that I'm seeing here is just to give you all a reminder that the programs will be available on YouTube. There's going to be like a microsite or a web page on Asala's website to give all of the just overview of what the project and the program entails and how to sign up for certificate, how to submit materials, all of those things. But if you would like to be able to just watch the recordings of the workshops, even if you want to return to the recordings from today, they will be available on Asala TV on YouTube. So also subscribe there, so that way you can know when those are uploaded. And that is free and open to the public at all times, as you all know from the, oh, like me start. You all know that's available, you know, because I go on YouTube and you search things. And so, yes, please subscribe to Asala TV and also to Asala's mailing list, so that way you could be updated about some of the more things around the project, including, like, again, the certificate program, and also acquisition, like us trying to maybe do submissions and things like that. So I think that that is all of the questions we have. I'll take a moment to just pause to see if anything else comes through before we wrap up this portion of our day. Thank you again, Tracey, so much. You are awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that that's going to conclude this part of our program today. Again, Tracey, thank you so much. I think
You're
so
welcome.
many families are going to really benefit from the information that you have shared, and you're going to bring people together, and you're going to make the most of their time. They're going to be getting their potato salad sponsored. They're going to be raising money for their babies, going to college. Like, you just
Yes.
so much information that we can use right now, that we can use indefinitely into the future. And we give thanks for all of your, everything that you shared with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bless you all. Thank you for having me.
You take
Love
care.
you.
And my condolences to you.
Thank you.
And I hope that you and your family are able to really just have a beautiful homegoing and celebration of people that have transitioned during this time. Much love to you, and y'all take care.
Bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So at this point, you all, we are going to take a 15-minute break. We will come back at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we will continue on with another amazing, informative presentation by Therese Nelson on how to take care of those recipes and that culinary part of our time together. So please join us back here in about 15 minutes. Thank you. Excuse my little technical difficulty here. I'm going to try to get this together. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second part of our program today. I am going to introduce our next presenter.
Hey there. Can't hear you.
Yes, I'm just going to give me a moment just to introduce you properly. So here we are now moving on. Now that we have a sense of how to plan family reunions, we are now going to get into what I find to be one of the most important parts of family gatherings, which is we came to eat. Or go and fix yourself a plate. Preserving Black family recipes. Therese Nelson from Black Culinary History will be guiding us through a presentation on this topic. We all have a verbal family history that has been passed down through great meals and stories from parents and grandparents. Therese Nelson is a chef, a writer, and the founder and culinary curator of Black Culinary History. Black Culinary History was founded in 2008 as a way to connect Black chefs, preserve Black heritage through the African diaspora, promote and share the work of Black food and beverage professionals, and maintain the legacy being constructed by Black chefs for the next generation. I had the pleasure of sharing space with Therese last October for a Black Foodways event we had at Weeksville Heritage Center. And I was just so enamored by your love of Black culinary history and your wealth of information. And so I'm really excited that the Asala audience is going to get a chance to spend time with you today. I will turn it over to you now. Thank you so much for being here.
Therese, thank you so much for having me. I want to thank Asala for having me as well. I have been a huge fan of you all for many, many years. So to get this invitation to come in and chat with you about a topic that is very close to my heart is a great honor. So I think I shared in the chat my presentation. I won't use my slides because I think this is Tracey's presentation was so charming and sort of conversational. But if you want to follow along some of the resources that I share, and for the purposes of note taking, the presentation is available so you can check it out. Food and recipes is central to my primary work as a chef, but also I think over the years, navigating my professional life, the power and saliency of Black culture, especially in American foodways, has been such a powerful battleground for the truth of our stories. I think that there's a way that the human commonality of food allows us to sort of have ourselves reflected back to ourselves in the most simple and powerful ways. And so I want to talk to you about recipes. I'll offer that I actually don't love recipes generally, mainly because I think they are misused. And it's such a powerful tool that to misuse them feels like a shame. Recipes in terms of cookbooks, in terms of the ways in which we are used to consuming them, are very Eurocentric. If we look at the sort of lineage of American foodways, Black hands have always been in the kitchens of this country, sort of crafting the taste and the sort of the flavors and making this country, helping this country dine well. And so early American cookbooks are so profoundly deceptive because our hand is nowhere to be seen in these cookbooks. And I think that in that way, the traditional structure of recipes sort of disempowers us. Sometimes the narrative that we sort of get told about our culture and our history is that we didn't write anything down, that we didn't have spaces for archiving. And I think the work that Joyce does is so powerful because it tells us, it shows us the truth of the fact that we always kept records. We always saw the power and value of our culture, but just might not have looked like, you know, it might not have been in a form that is most typically accepted. And so for me, recipes become this really interesting way, if you really dissect them and really sort of treat them as preciously as they should be treated, become this really interesting way to sort of view history and sort of, they become this really interesting tool to preserve your family's legacy in a very modern and current way, a sort of urgent way that isn't just sort of beholden to the past, but definitely a tactic and tool that's useful in the future. When Joyce reached out to participate, I realized that I had to sort of go through my own family's history. I think about our own family reunions and how they really they are part of my DNA in ways that I hadn't really considered. And I think some of looking back at, especially when I was growing up before I left high school, those summers going reconnecting back with family. My family is from South Carolina, reconnecting with my family in these places where I wouldn't be able to see. I sort of had a small family, nuclear family, and most of our folks were spread out around the country. And so these summer family reunions in South Carolina in this tiny town called Latta were some of the only times I was really able to connect with this idea of a larger family. And I think I took for granted how much of those experiences were really embedded in my DNA. I think watching my great aunts and bake cakes from scratch with no measurements. Tracey mentioned the fish fry, coming from filthy New York to go to the sweet, clean air of South Carolina, and to be out in the woods and watch the men clean fish and prepare oil and all of the side dishes that were sort of created, and sort of the alchemy of it, that the women were creating all the side dishes. And this fish fry was not just like a sort of cookout, it was the first entry point to everybody sort of level set in the weekend. Those experiences are in your marrow. And I think that had we had more forethought about the value of preserving those experiences through recipe, they'd be ones that were much easier to translate generationally. We lost my grandfather, it'll be 9 years ago at this point. And I really only have ties to my paternal, my grandfather's family line. And I think if I reconsidered all his sisters and brothers through the ways in which they cooked and the recipes that I would correlate to them, I think that it gives me such a much clearer way to sort of describe and translate who my folks were than a lot of other forms. And so I don't know, I would love us to start just through this whole presentation, just consider what we think of as recipes and their general usefulness. What are recipes really? I want us to sort of disrupt our notion of like a static title, ingredient, method of preparation in terms of what we consider recipes to be. I think, excuse me, one of my favorite cookbook writers, is a woman named Verna Mae Grosvenor. And she wrote a book called Vibration Cooking that was really sort of genealogy, it was anthropology, but it was cookbook in a form that really didn't wasn't beholden to structure. It was poetry. It was a communication about who she was in this way that was so profound. And I think that it gives you a really interesting example of, I don't know, rethinking what the structure, sort of disrupting the notion that we have to be beholden to a particular structure. Recipes in general, to my mind, are a communication. It's me trying to tell you how to recreate something. And I think that that language that you sort of create in the form of a recipe is much more important than any kind of specific structure. Although I will share one with you if you, that you have a kind of starting point. But please consider the function and the sort of usefulness of a recipe over form every single time. Something like a cake recipe, surely you would need maybe more specific measurements and specific instruction than, say, a salad recipe, but so much of a recipe is about communication of types of ingredients. It's about so much more than just the static recipe. So just reconsider what you think of when you think of static recipes. And also consider that they really are heirloom. I think one of the most beautiful and powerful things is when you go through papers, old papers, not just your personal family papers, but anyone's archives, and you find handwritten recipe cards, or you find cookbooks that are, don't even have anything to do with your family's heritage, but you find cookbooks and you find your grandma's or your mother's handwriting in books. That tactile, that kind of personal connection to the recipes that we cook are so much more valuable than the food itself. And so really just sort of consider what recipes really are. Yeah, I think that recipes also are useful beyond the cooking. I think about recipes that may be passed down through multiple generations. Say, take a pound cake recipe. Pound cake recipes used to be aptly named a pound of everything: a pound of eggs, a pound of flour, a pound of butter, a pound of sugar. And that recipe still holds up. It's still delicious, but as time has moved on, technology has moved on, our growing practices have changed, the way the flour has gotten better, the quality of eggs has changed, the types of butter that we use or fat that we use in the recipe may have changed. Health concerns change. And so that pound of everything recipe evolves, right? And so to look at a recipe that moves through time and gets updated, and you sort of have the footprint, the sort of fingerprint of everybody's generational touch, generational hand on a single recipe, is such a beautiful and powerful way to sort of show authorship and agency. That I think is important to sort of consider when we are thinking about these dishes that we love and have such a connection to. I also think that we should consider one of the things that Tracey listed up that I found really interesting was this notion of committee, who we deputize in this process. Lots of times in my family's family reunions, it's sort of a group of elders, a group of women specifically, who do the majority of the cooking. If we don't have sort of a restaurant to go to or something like that. And the keepers of those recipes are typically worried about or concerned with just getting the food done, right? You don't sort of have a lot of time to consider getting the whole family involved. You're trying to feed a bunch of people in a way that is maybe not, you're not dealing with professional cooks. So, folks who maybe aren't accustomed to cooking for this many people, the concentration on the sort of cooking sessions aren't necessarily preserving recipes in the moment. But to my mind, this is a really excellent way to get young people involved, right? Like, technology is at our fingertips. So what would it look like if at that fish fry you had the 16-year-olds who are on their phones anyway to record clips of cleaning the fish or, watching your great aunt make the peach cobbler or any cooking that's happening in the moment, to preserve it in this way that gets folks involved intergenerationally, but also sort of makes folks consider that they can be part of a process that, even though it's functional, certainly has cultural and I don't know, has such value beyond the sort of practical experience of feeding folks at the actual reunion. Also think about form. I think sometimes I list this up every time, but we still consider that recipes have to be handwritten, have to be sort of static. And I think that, video and audio clips of recipes that sort of, again, are communicating in ways that maybe a handwritten recipe, if someone isn't really a great cook or doesn't have a lot of, a written recipe is only helpful if you know how to cook. Or if the person explaining the recipe has such an expansive way of writing that they're able to sort of parse out every step in a way that makes it universal. And so to sort of pair a static recipe with audio or video is so helpful, and is, again, ways that you can get sort of intergenerational coalition together to start thinking about your family's recipes. I want to talk to you a little bit about basic recipe structure, because, again, while handwritten recipes are not the sort of end all and be all, they are sort of they are useful tools. There are really 4 main sections to recipes that you want to consider. Again, think of just in your mind right now, think of a recipe that you just love. It's one that your family is just one maybe you don't have a recipe for handwritten, but one that you know how to make is just delicious to you, and you can taste it right now. There are 4 sections I think if you really are profoundly intentional about and make the most of, will make that recipe sing for really anybody. Title, right? What we name the recipe, naming the recipe as specific as possible, giving credit to the person who taught you the recipe, so you sort of have the footprint, have the sort of the fingerprint of that family member, that generational family member in the name of the recipe. That is, sort of just giving sort of authorship to folks is important. I think that it also makes the document now a piece of history. It's not just sharing my potato salad recipe. It's the sort of giving honor to folks who contribute to that recipe. Head notes are a big deal. In my industry, head notes are very controversial in recipe writing, because I think people are very accustomed to sort of going online and just picking recipes out of the blue to kind of get a general blueprint of a recipe, and then putting their own spin onto things. And so it sort of diminishes the sort of the authorship, maybe is the word, but it sort of, I think it makes recipes less precious. Head notes are really a communication, really, before you look at ingredients or instructions. They're the things that give the recipe context. They're the story behind it. I personally love super long head notes that give tons of information. The seasonality of the fruit that you're using in a cobbler, who the recipe came from originally. You're giving information so that the person who's consuming, about to use this recipe, has tons of information to get them in right relationship to the process that they're about to go through. It could be a 10-minute recipe, it could be a 4-hour recipe, but you are about to ask somebody to spend time, giving this time and energy over to creating this recipe. Those head notes are really the thing that kind of give honor to and sort of respect to the rest of the recipes to come. Ingredients, I say, is a loaded section. I think between head notes and ingredients, you really are trying to give as much information to folks to set them up right before you get into method of preparation. So ingredient lists, try and be as specific as possible. This is where, watching your grandma make her sweet potato pie and watching the ingredients, like if she just seemingly picking ingredients out of nowhere, that's when you get somebody who can, sort of, if she's roasting 4 sweet potatoes, real quick, get the sweet potatoes and weigh them, right? If she's, sort of eyeballing the amount of heavy cream or condensed milk or something, start with what the original size of the can was, and see how much is displaced to kind of get those specific ingredients listed out. Like there's a alchemy to it and a sort of natural evolution of recipes, and that you can kind of, just by watching and sort of being in community with someone while they're doing these recipes, can easily help to tie down some specific specific amounts to ingredients. But really just think about being as sort of specific about measurements as possible, as specific as you can be. Also, when you list ingredients, really think about provenance, right? Like talk about the kind of butter you use, the sort of as detailed as possible, because someone looking at this recipe out of context should be able to you communicating tons of things that you don't even realize you're communicating, just in listing ingredients, right? If your family has a supermarket that they love to go to, if they have a specific kind of salt they use, all those things are communicating regionality. They're communicating socioeconomics. They could communicate tons that you don't even realize, but will help people to recreate the recipe as closely to your intentions as possible. And also, I find, to me, going through archival recipes, that you can tell the time frame, the era that the recipe was written in based on ingredient lists. And so it's a really deceptively simple, but really important section of your recipes, because you are communicating so much and not even realize it. Think about a red velvet cake, right? Red velvet cake was sort of a cake that was born out of World War II rationing. Actually, I think World War I, but chocolate wasn't available, right? Like you had these decadent, delicious cakes, and you weren't able to sort of process cocoa and chocolate and sugar in really interesting ways. So you find recipes from that era that are, sort of the traditional red velvet cakes, but they had cocoa powder instead of chocolate, and you would, because the cocoa powder wasn't processed because rationing, its interaction with baking soda and baking powder, again, ingredients that, depending on what era the recipe was written in, wouldn't even, baking powder is an affectation of a really particular point in history, that reaction gave you a reddish kind of cake. And so chocolate cakes turned red during this particular era, but they were so delicious that people sort of kept the recipe. And so when, you had this kind of odd, kind of burgundy kind of colored cake, once the cotton was high and wartime was over, and all of a sudden you can add food coloring or add more chocolate or change the color altogether. And so you can watch a recipe like a red velvet cake that it has at this point 100 plus year history, and depending on the ingredient list can tell you when the recipe was written, what part of the country the person who wrote it was lived in, that kind of thing. And then you have method of preparation. I mean, you sort of, this is the meat of the recipe. This is how you really explain to someone how to do what you do. Conventional recipe writing will tell you the number, each step, to be as descriptive as possible in each step. But again, you can disrupt form, but you just are trying to get someone to make your movements, to do the recipe in a way that will get them as close to your end product as possible. This is where you talk about the tools you're using. This is where you get as specific as possible as you can with reference to just all those little steps. If you're baking bread, the humidity in the air, time of year, all these factors really do tie into, sort of how you're trying to set someone up to be as successful in the recipe as possible. So the method preparation section is really the one that gives you the most tangible information about how to apply your context, all these ingredients into a usable product. Let's see. So recipes are really only as valuable as the way in which we archive them. And you all are in for some really wonderful presentations over the summer, of the next 7 or 8 presentations to come. That will give you sort of best practices for archiving and oral storytelling. But if you're interested in sort of creating a family cookbook, there are lots of tools. If you sort of, again, the static book form of a family cookbook is super valuable, and there are lots of tools available to you to create your own. There's a company called the Cookbook app that makes it all digital. So you can go into the software, you can create a digital cookbook that you can share among your family. You can get folks to contribute their recipes and upload them all. It makes the app downloadable to your phone. So now you have your family recipes at the, push of a button on your smartphone or on your computer. It's a great platform just because it's it's the most modern of the ones I'll share. And again, it's a cookbookapp.com. It's super dope. It's a really simple site to use. I think they might recently have an option to print the book, but for primarily, it's really sort of about having a digital version of your family's app. I think that the digital part is helpful as well because it could be a run-in or kind of, it can kind of be a run-in, or you can kind of add to it periodically, so it doesn't have to be a static form. Like once you print the book, you have to reprint it and all that kind of jazz. But like this app is great because you can kind of continuously add to it. Another site I really love that we used a couple years ago for my family was a site called Blurb. BLURB. It's a dope site because it's basically a print to order site. It definitely has a internal tool to sort of design books. So if you have someone in your family who is good at graphic design, it can kind of help you to sort of structure the book. They have internal tools that sort of make it relatively simple, but it's really sort of for the folks who already kind of have their family recipes all kind of collected, images taken, and you just want to sort of paste it and get it printed as a book. Their books are a little pricey, but they're beautiful quality. And I think it's in terms of, having that one archival book that kind of is maybe the record of that year's family reunion or something. It could be a really interesting tool. It's also, again, print to order, so you can kind of decide, what quality level you want the book to be. And the final one in terms of traditional cookbooks, I would say, is the site called heritagecookbooks.com or heritagecookbooks.com. It's a good one because it's specifically made for folks who are trying to do family cookbooks. And their print per order is a little less expensive than Blurb. And they also are, again, because they are made for family cookbooks, they have recipe building software. And so if you aren't really sort of comfortable yet or familiar with writing recipes in traditional forms, then it's a really great resource because they have the tools already, kind of like the Cookbook app, to sort of help you build structured recipes. I'll share 5 cookbooks that I love that I think if you are really interested in sort of thinking about the expansiveness of sort of the structured traditional cookbook are just some of my favorite ones to sort of use and go back to. Cleora Butler wrote Cleora's Kitchen. I believe it was written in the 2000s sometime, but it's 8 decades of her family's history. And I love it because it really does sort of highlight some of the points I made earlier about the usefulness of recipes as not just sort of static recipes, but really sort of family genealogy and archive. It's one of the few books that I think it does the work of sort of honoring the diversity of the Black experience and sort of through the lens of food. And it's one of the ones I think that for its time and era was really outlined in the way that it sort of honored this notion of the pride of place and kind of the expansiveness of our culture and foodways. And I don't know, it's one of the ones I go to all the time. I've referenced it over the years, and it's just really beautifully done book. Another one is Norma Jean Darden and her sister did Spoon Bread and Strawberry Wine, which again looks at the family genealogy and family history through food in a really interesting way. It's been in multiple printings, and Ms. Darden actually she runs a restaurant right here in Harlem, and is in her 80s and still going. And so I think that her book is really powerful because she's someone who has she's been in the restaurant industry for a long time. The ways in which she thinks about Black heritage and the recipes that she shared in that book really to sort of give you a sense of the sort of iconic recipes you kind of look for in your own family to sort of use as valuable. Another book, Tracey, if you go to her website, I don't know what the correlation is, but the National Council of Negro Women in the 90s, I think it is similar to her National Family Reunion event, but they had the Black Family Reunion cookbook. And it is one that I love so much. It has multiple printings as well, but it it's to me the prime example of a sort of blueprint for the family reunions, a family reunion cookbook. It was sort of a commemorative book in support of the national effort to bring the family reunion national and sort of sort of capture the quintessential nature of the Black family reunion. So it's just a really interesting book. It's sort of multiple families across the country contributed. I think it gives you a really good example of like how to take disparate recipes and make them into something that feels so timely and cohesive and, I don't know, just culturally rich. 2 other books that I'll mention and move on quickly are books that I think do a really interesting job of helping us think about what our foodways really are, what the roots of them are. One is A Taste of Country Cooking by Edna Lewis. Grind Down with Southern Cooking. People laud this book as a sort of, referendum on Southern cuisine, but I actually read it as her very intentional and very specific story around her own family's tradition. She was from Freetown, Virginia. Her people were, the sort of first colony of free people. And this book it takes the idea of celebration, individual celebrations, and creates menus based on each celebration. And so, while it's sort of this celebration of the South, it really is a celebration of a very specific South, her family's South. And I think that it is an interesting way to structure a book because maybe you don't, maybe it's not just structured in some of the ways that books are typically by like meal segment. This book is structured by celebration. So maybe consider what some of the most valuable celebrations beyond the family reunion are for your family, right? Like, maybe one family does Christmas really beautifully. So they take, Christmas, and maybe Thanksgiving is the providence of some of the fried, turkey some family does is just amazing. So maybe, you divide up the work of creating the family cookbook by celebrations. And so to have folks think about menus based on those celebrations and that be their contribution. And the final book I'll share with you is my all-time favorite book, which is Vibration Cooking, or The Travel Notes of a Geechee Girl by Freda Smart Grosvenor. I love the book because she completely broke form. I think I've been sort of talking about disrupting the notion of recipes since the beginning of this presentation. And it really is because Freda was so irreverent about European structure. And her book was really this sort of love letter to Low Country, South Carolina. And it was her sort of using art and poetry and heritage to sort of tell us who she was through food. And she did it in a way that, there are recipes that are literally just, cut the rabbit, saute it up, season it, and serve. If you have a vocabulary for the food that she's talking about, then you can kind of glean what you need from her instructions to make something that is similar to what she intended. But I think the kind of the bombast of the way she sort of broke form in this book was really sort of about moving center to our culture and to making who we are the most important part to add onto the page. And so I just would offer Vibration as a way to sort of think about maybe not being so beholden to traditional recipe forms as much as the usefulness of the form to communicate who you are and who your family is and what you find valuable in these recipes. I guess I'll end with non-traditional options. I think that technology is such a valuable tool when we think about recipes, and I think that as we've seen sort of food television evolve and erupt and become so much more part of the zeitgeist, that we should sort of consider that, again, certainly you want to cook the delicious, peach cobbler, and you want to make the amazing, buttermilk biscuit, but the story behind all these dishes are really, I think, the most valuable heirloom that we have. And so consider, talking to those elders who, are not promised to us. Get them to talk. If they can't, physically make the recipes, get them to talk to the recipes. If they can, if they are able to create recipes or to recreate the recipes, record them. Use forms that are not static, because these forms are going to be the ones that are the most accessible beyond your family, and I think will be profoundly useful in the future. So there are 3 tools that I love so much for thinking outside the box in terms of recipes. The first is StoryCorps. StoryCorps is an app, an audio platform brought to you by NPR. It is a way to archive audio clips that's so dope. You get sort of tagged in searchable clips that are useful internationally. You can be very specific about your family in terms of how you tag your information, but StoryCorps is a really wonderful platform to upload and preserve your audio clips that, especially in ways that could be useful to other folks who are looking for best practices. Tracey also listed a Facebook. I love Facebook groups for family archiving. Your family reunion should certainly have a Facebook group, but your family just in general could have a group that is just keeping everybody connected. And it becomes a really interesting and wonderfully simple, free space to sort of share your recipes, share your videos. It could be your weeknight, your weeknight dinner recipes. All of those recipes are as valuable as the super important heirloom recipes. Your dope pasta salad, your dope, summer salad, like to have it be this running archive of the way your family eats and dines is such a valuable tool. And so don't discount the usefulness of being active on social platforms that you're kind of keeping your family across the country, around the world engaged. And then the last one, outside of like a personal family website or blog, would be YouTube, in my opinion. You're watching this content here on YouTube, and I think that a family page on YouTube, again, like, influencers and all kinds of folks use YouTube, but YouTube is a free and accessible platform to anyone. So you can have your family's YouTube channel, as you keep it private if you want, certainly have it public, but your YouTube channel, to be able to archive and upload videos from your reunion, videos of recipes that you think are dope, is a profoundly valuable tool, and it's right at your fingertips. Uploading is super simple. I just think it's a really interesting and valuable way to keep this content preserved. I think we discount the value and power of the practice of preservation. It's a muscle you kind of have to use. And so if we sort of get in the practice of honoring and sort of seeing more value in our family's recipes, we'll be in the practice of using them and kind of preserving them. So it's not such a chore to sort of to get it done. I think that you sort of see all of a sudden, like as time passes, you have a whole cookbook if you just sort of keep after it for even a month. Think about if everyone contributed one recipe a week for a month, if your whole family did it. You have a whole cookbook in a month. But yeah, just sort of considering and reframing the power and value of recipes, because they're right here for you, and it's something that we have to cook for ourselves, and we have these traditions that are right here in plain sight. But if we just add a little bit more, add a little bit more reverence to their cultural value, we have a really interesting and powerful tool to pass along. So I think that's all I have. You can reach out to me anytime at my website, blackculinaryhistory.com. You can email me through the site or at Therese at blackculinaryhistory.com. And I'm on most social platforms as Black Culinary. So if you ever want any tools or tips or information, on the site, we have lots of reading lists for books that you can use and reference, and videos, etc. So check us out, and I just appreciate your time.
Thank you, Therese. Thank you so much. Your love and your passion of Black culinary history and heritage and foodways is so permeable. And I just really, really appreciate being in the space with you and getting the chance for people to see that. And just thank you so much for decolonizing the recipe, for deconstructing what it is, and really making it fit within the construct of what it is inside Black families. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. We now will take some questions. If anyone has any questions, this will be a good time to ask. There's one question from Jennifer in the chat. You may have already answered this because I think you mentioned one of your favorite books up at the top of your presentation, and then I think you gave a fuller list towards the end. But just in case, the question is, what was the title and author of the authentically written cookbook that you described as poetry? Is it available for purchase?
100% is. It's Ready-Made Smart Grosvenor's Vibration Cooking, or the Travel Notes of a Geechee Girl. It's a beautiful book. It's been reprinted several times. She's having a sort of resurgence now. Just because I think people are paying more attention to our food culture. She was somebody who did it beautifully. She was telling us the truth about who we were in the 70s. Actually, my favorite of her books is a book called Thursdays and Every Other Sunday Off. She wrote Vibration in 72, and I think she wrote, no, it's in 1970, and she wrote Thursdays in 72. And that book is really sort of about the domestic worker and how powerful and how much respect you need to put on the work of domestic service, because she was sort of saying that like these women held, these not just women, but these women and men held our culinary traditions in their marrow, that these women and men who sort of responsible for the taste of this country, who did it professionally, of course, transferred those skill sets to their family dining day. The skills that you brought to creating these, gorgeous, technically excellent dishes, of course, would translate into how you fed your family. And so sort of restoring sort of honor and sort of authorship, agency to folks who you would label as domestic, was like her, that's the whole point of the book. It's so dope. But yeah, Vibration is really my favorite. It's really dope. And she sort of asks you to sort of dismantle what you think about recipes in that book.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for uplifting authors who are, practicing these different ways of embodying and presenting and preserving the recipes of our people. So appreciate you sharing so many resources. Is there any other questions that we have from our viewers on the Solid TV or any other folk who are on Zoom with us? So that was thorough then. So you were thorough then. Going once, going to, again, I think I said I just really wanted you to be the person to present this because I really appreciate the way that you think about the recipe. And I know for myself, we had a beautiful conversation last, we were sharing a Zoom space about having to, just think about like not the westernized way of recipe keeping. An experience I'll share since we have a few minutes here and just maybe provide some more context to what you were offering. So we had at our Sensing History program for Weeksville Heritage Center, the Black Foodways component, we had Chef Omar Tate prepare a beautiful menu for us and also to prepare a cooking demo video. And myself, who does not cook that much, I am Blue Apron, Culinary, like whoever, if there's anybody out there who wants to cook for me, please contact me because I'm just not cooking for myself these days. And I do like follow recipes. I realized through my interaction with you and Omar that is a part of myself that still needs to be decolonized because there was the way in which I'm so used to looking, if I do cook, that I'm so used to following the recipe like word for word. And that when I was engaging Omar Tate's recipe, I remember looking at the recipe he shared and looking at the video and they were not syncing up. And I understood it in hindsight. Why that happened was that he got in the kitchen, he got inspired, and it was like, oh, let's add a little bit of this, or based on the ingredients he may have had the day that the recipe was created versus where he was in the present time of cooking. Those are different constructs. Black time is real. And we like, oh, we didn't forgot about this whole other thing that we done did. And now we're here. And so I'm trying to follow his instructions from a past time and not really engaging him in, like a more present time and not even engaging myself as a person in the kitchen cooking. And that was something you really helped me to, you really empowered me when we shared space last time to really to think through, because I knew intuitively for myself that I shouldn't do what I was about to do. But I did it anyways because the recipe said so. And so I just really, again, just wanted to share that to provide more context to just even like how this came about and just really wanting to continue. I think there's so much that we can explore in this topic around really decolonizing the recipe, deconstructing what it is that we hold those and we preserve it in so many different ways. And I really appreciate you giving so many different examples to the people about how that can happen. So thank you. And thank you again for empowering me. I still ain't been cooking, but at least I know the recipe ain't the way. So
Just say this though. I will say I don't want to put too fine a point in the fact that on the idea that we don't need recipes. I'll say that the thing I sort of was trying to impart to you, and just this thing about trust in ourselves. I think the valuable thing about recipes is that they are communication. They sort of teaching someone how to do something and really just teaching you how to trust your instincts, right? Like the part of what I was saying about sort of method of preparation, like I'm giving you as many markers, as many tools about how to sense when something is done or ready as I can, so you now are empowered to sort of think through. Also, like Blue Apron is a prime example. That company is fine. But the sort of intention in those recipes to sort of make it as sort of simple and replicatable as possible is all on the back end. Like when you get your recipe card and your ingredients, that all the work is done for you. But even in that, what do you love? If you want more sesame oil, if you feel like it's a little more salt, that's you adding your fingerprint onto a recipe that has so much intention, so much work has gone into. But you are now deputized at that kitchen, at the stove, to sort of add your fingerprint into the experience. And so I just want folks to sort of not be as sort of beholden to recipes, but sort of trust yourself to be part of the process.
Don't be so, what is it saying? Don't be so precious with it, And I love this language of adding your fingerprint to it. And I think that then is, if we think about just the space we're in with this project, the genealogy of that fingerprint, the trusting of the family, all of those different things. So we have a question now that came in from our Asala TV viewers. How do we change the narrative that African-American culinary culture is just slave food or is just European foods that have nothing to do with our own African-American creativity?
Well, I think reframing language is critical as well. Sort of our foodways get sort of put into this box that centers the enslaved experience as the primary space that our heritage showed up in this country. Our foodways are diasporic. They come from, they touch so many parts around the globe. You don't really have global cuisine without the sort of African diaspora, right? And so really, I think the way in which we dismantle that misguided idea that our food is simplistic, that has no depth of roots, is really to sort of think about and understand the truth, right? That when you look at a recipe and really kind of look at it, really kind of go back to its actual origins, you find us everywhere. You find our DNA in so much of what we think of as global cuisine. And so it really, I think, comes from starting from, I'm always a person who is empowered by individual responsibility to know the truth. And once you know better, you got to do better. You can't, you reframe how so often in our own culture, we talk about our food as though it is unhealthy, it is, sort of destructive in this way that is so profoundly ahistoric. That if you look at even if you just took the life of the enslaved diet was primarily plant-based. Certainly the enslaved experience had spectrums depending upon where you were in the country. Surely that's part of the story. But in every instance that we find in archive and it's the truth of the life of the enslaved cook, there was profound honor and dignity and placemaking in the ways in which they engage their practice. And so even just in that notion of even the idea of making a way out of no way, taking the scraps and making something dope, even that narrative, I think, disempowers the notion that you weren't just taking this, you understood the alchemy of cooking and were able to make something delicious regardless of what ingredients you had. And so I think that there's this way in which we should just reconsider who we give authorship to in this experience. So much of the conventional wisdom of those times via cookbooks, via the way in which history is relayed to us, leaves out our voice. And so using conventional wisdom, using what we know to be true about the diaspora, using what we know to be true about who is doing work, how, through the voices of folks like Michael Twitty, the voices of so many historians who are doing this archival work. They're telling us the truth. Right now on Netflix, we have High on the Hog. Dr. Harris wrote that book 10 years ago, giving us a really clear and very simple linear idea around how our culture shows up in the building of American cuisine. Now we have a documentary that shows us ourselves to ourselves, reflects us back to ourselves, from the birth of the nation to emancipation. Watch that series, but also read the book, right? You read that book, now you have 50 other books you should go to. There's content that is right here for us that dismantles that nonsense. One read. The first paragraph on the Hog will get you right.
Yes, get you right. Dismantling nonsense. Yes, yes. I love our people. Yes, thank you again. Your passion and just I love, I think I might have told you this the last time, just the way in which you, as a vessel, are one of our gifts of preservations in Black culinary. Like the way you just devour and this information, and it comes out of your pores. I'm just like, where like, and this and this and this. And this is just, again, my second time sharing space with you. And it's just the same type of energy. And just even now you have new reference points because it's been 6-7 months. So you didn't saw some more things. So I just really, really appreciate what you do in preserving our culinary history and also in disrupting narratives, So yes, let's see. I think we may have another question that has come in. Thank you for saying that. There is a movement that doesn't give value to our ancestors' way of cooking and or does not accurately represent it. Yeah, so more gratitude for your perspective is definitely very much appreciated. Do we have any more questions, comments in regards to this wonderful presentation? Okay, well, I thank you again. You could feel free to, yes, go, yes, thank you. So I'm gonna end us out with just a few little housekeeping notes, and then we will go on about our day. Hey, we got out of here a little early. That means you got some time to go make you some lunch, because I don't know about you, but I'm a little hungry right now. So now I'm gonna go whoop me up some leftovers. First, before we go any further, I would like to take a moment to give a special shout out to our sponsors for this project. New York Life, we really appreciate the grant that has provided this opportunity for us to really be able to bring this type of dynamic and multifaceted program to a national audience, and even beyond the people who are tuning in today, who may tune in the next few months. This information will be there in perpetuity. And so just really appreciate you seeing the value in this type of project and giving us all of the funding for us to be able to bring it all together. So shout outs to New York Life. We are still, this is like the relaunch of a project. Today, we wanted to just get the ball going, get everything rolling, just let you all know what is forthcoming. And so we are still compiling all of the resources, getting all of those workshops recorded and making everything available to you. That should be all happening within the next coming weeks. And so if you want to fully participate in this program, please make sure you subscribe to Asala's newsletter so you could be the first to know once our microsite goes up. Also, please subscribe to Asala TV because all of the recordings, even the ones from today, will be available free for you to view there at your leisure. And then if you have any additional questions that you were not able to ask today that may come up, please feel free to email our Archival Alchemy project program team about this project. And so if one of my AA team members could drop that link to where folks can subscribe to the mailing list one more time, both on Zoom and on YouTube, and then also to drop our email address so we can receive messages. That will be greatly appreciated. Thank you all again for joining us. Thank you to our team who has been working behind the scenes to make sure that this program has ran smoothly. We give thanks. May you all be well and stay safe and get to hug up on and love upon your loved ones this summer. Thank you.